The Batman Arkham games are some of the most beloved action-adventure games of all time. Rocksteady made a name for themselves through these titles, and many expected Suicide Squad killed the Justice League to maintain that same high-quality standard. Unfortunately, that's not the case, as the developer threw caution into the wind when making this third-person shooter, moving away from the Arkham game's signature style into Fortnite territory mixed with lengthy, repetitive mission structures. Despite facing the world's greatest heroes, you'll end up against weak caricatures that often spit in the face of the DC universe. This review will contain heavy spoilers, so let this serve as your first and only warning. The narrative here is that Harley Quinn, King Shark, Captain Boomerang, and Deadshot, at least what he claims to be, are recruited into Amanda Waller's Task Force X. Implanted with bombs, Waller has the unlucky souls attempting to kill the Justice League in Metropolis. The unfortunate reality is that most of the League is under the control of Brainiac. The exception is the Flash and Diana. Where remains of the population is being transformed into warriors, which you'll fight in hordes, and in Hyden, where the League either kills them outright or tries to enslave them for conversion. But you're probably wondering, how did Brainiac enslave the entire Justice League, or at least most of them? Well, they let him. I'm not kidding. In the Codex entry explaining what happened, they walked into his ship to start a diplomatic meeting against one of the most dangerous things in the entire universe, and he started his trap when they refused to offer to become his lieutenants. You think I'm joking here, but there's a Codex entry explaining this. He enslaved everyone except the Flash and Diana because the Flash was able to run out of the ship and was only able to save Diana in time. You cannot make this stuff up. I'm literally not joking here. I mean, it sounds like they had a backup plan of how to stop Brainiac just in case the diplomatic option didn't work, but they did this because they thought the population would be against them. I'm not really sure where they came up with this type of thinking. I'm pretty sure the population would be okay with you destroying the giant alien spaceship that just came onto Earth with one of the most dangerous beings in the entire universe rather than talking to him. It's complete lunacy, and it makes absolutely no sense, with the characters even aware of his powers throughout the multiverse. Yes, the writers of the game are attempting to pull an MCU in this situation. I'm just like completely lost here. All of this is happening during something called Justice Day, almost a shameful copy of how Square Enix's Marvel's Avengers started. They were honoring the Justice League in a citywide parade just before all of this happened. Honestly, it just doesn't seem like something Batman would agree to, especially something that honors the villains of the past in the Arkham games and their actions, which resulted in the deaths of hundreds of people, especially Joker. So why would Bruce ever agree to honor the legacy of these events, even for entertainment purposes, where one of the final themes of Arkham Knight was how everyone would forget Joker and make his greatest fear come true? As you might expect, how exactly are a bunch of convicts using guns and melee weapons able to kill gods and the most dangerous man in the world? Well, with plot armor and convenience. You see, the game makes it almost insultingly easy for Task Force X to kill each member. You'll easily come across every gadget and item you need in order to nullify or weaken each of the Justice League, so you can shoot them to death. I'm not joking. Literally, you just come across the item, you go to the Justice League member, then you just shoot them until they die. It comes across as just bad comedy in a lot of ways. For example, the Flash, after being taken by Brainiac, easily runs up to the squad and he can kill them, but then chooses not to. I get that he's just mocking them, but at the same time, he kills Lex with ease despite having an anti-Space Force device to deploy against the Flash to just highlight how simple it would be for the Flash to kill each of the members of Task Force X. At the same time, it makes little sense that the rest of the League wouldn't be able to kill them, considering how Batman in his first appearance against Task Force X makes short work of all of them, showcasing how it would look to be an NPC in these Predator challenges from the Arkham games, but at the same time showcased how easy it is to just dispose of each one of these members. Even Green Lantern caught them with ease before they made it anywhere in the city, so why don't they just shackle them so they can't access their weapons and crush their bodies? I mean, he did it here. What's stopping him from doing it in future events? Heck, they also put them off screen for some reason. Like, Batman speaks about how he's busy with other things, hunting down other people, but I'm just like saying, wouldn't he deal with the immediate threat, no matter how minor it would be, with Task Force X? It makes absolutely no sense. And then there's the lore reasoning behind everything. Look, I'm not the biggest DC lore master, but the fact that Green Lantern still has access to his ring despite being under Brainiac's control, and the rest of the Lantern Corps hasn't come down to investigate the entire situation given he's still part of their entire organization, is a bit strange. Not to mention that King Shark has somehow managed to use the ring after Green Lantern's death. Again, I'm not joking here. He literally rips the ring off Green Lantern's finger and just puts it on, and the ring gives him full access to the ring's power. I'm not an expert on Green Lantern, but isn't the ring supposed to seek out the next most capable member once the previous Green Lantern has died? How the hell does King Shark gain access to the Green Lantern's power after killing him? Makes no sense, and considering that the Arkham games were very faithful to DC lore, I'm not really sure what exactly happened here. Did they play it for lulz? Because this is just insulting. Since this takes place in the Arkham universe, we do have to include Batman's legacy. When he's been on the verge of death multiple times, he took down people like Ra's al Ghul, Clayface, Killer Croc, Mr. Freeze, and so many others while in the process of dying. And when you face Batman, you learn that his own family couldn't beat him. You know, Robin, Jason Todd, Nightwing, and Oracle, all of whom received training from Batman, and he considers to be the only people who can take him down. But somehow 4 random people that he already took down with one hit in this game were able to beat him while under the Scarecrow's fear toxin. Granted, the entire sequence that this plays out in is really well done. It takes many of the assets from Arkham Knight and retools them for this entire fear sequence that builds on the characters and showcases what really gets to them. And let's not even talk about Superman. God, the way they kill off Clark is just a middle finger to the DC universe. I mean, he's Superman and they beat him with guns. If that doesn't make you completely confused, nothing will. A lot of what happens in Kill the Justice League is just plain weird. Like someone took a bunch of random stories from fanfiction writers and decided to mix them all together. The level of convenience and pure luck here is just shameful. The chef's kiss is that they have a memorial to Kevin Conroy at the end of the credits. Like, granted his death was unexpected, but the memorial just comes off as tasteless. To have Batman die at the hands of Harley Quinn of all people, Nightwing or Jason Todd or Oracle, heck, even just bring back Robin and show that he didn't die at the hands of Batman, that he survived somehow. But to have Harley Quinn do it, you had so many options to choose from and you decide to pick Joker's main squeeze. Considering Rocksteady owes most of their reputation to the Batman IP, the kill off Batman in this way just comes off as quite insulting to the legacy that they owe their entire reputation to. But what about the rest of Task Force X? Well, they're okay. The personalities of each of Task Force X aren't exactly deep. The writers try to build a sense of camaraderie between all of them, but it's clear even towards the end, they'll stab each other in the back in a heartbeat. Heck, you can tell Boomerang he'll get his freedom if he kills the other 3, and he'll do it without even a second thought. Granted, these are selfish criminals, but the developers never really worked that angle. They just work together and verbally harass one another. They could have had a great opportunity where each of them are backstabbing one another for their freedom and use that angle, but they decide not to. There's no chemistry here or even evolution of the characters. They just end up as the same people as when we started the game. As for those wondering why Deadshot is a black guy now, well, they decided that the character from Arkham City isn't really Deadshot, but a fake. It gets even crazier when you realize that this Deadshot could have pinned all his crimes on the Arkham City Deadshot and not get removed from his daughter's life, but he chooses to just side with his ego and blame Green Lantern for locking him up. Rightfully so. I mean, the guy is an assassin, so of course one of the heroes would lock him up, but he blames Green Lantern for everything despite taking responsibility. Again, he's a selfish criminal, but you can't really root for this guy considering, you know, he's an idiot. It doesn't make any reason for why they even did this. The only reason I can think of on a personal level is that they want to capitalize on people who saw the film, seeing that Will Smith and Idris Elba played Deadshot and Bloodsport in the films, in hopes that people who watched the films would buy the game. If you don't believe that publishers would make such a choice, look at how Insomniac Games and Sony swapped Peter Parker's face in Marvel Spider-Man with a Tom Holland look-alike. I mean, the idea that there are multiple Deadshots would have been a really cool idea, that each Deadshot killed the previous Deadshot and claimed the title. That would have been a really cool idea and an interesting thing to roll out. As for the rest, Harley Quinn is the same character from the recent Suicide Squad film. Boomerang is a backstabbing loser who will enslave children, and King Shark, well, he's a big shark who likes to read. Quinn is a strange case. Instead of the complicated psycho from the Arkham games who was battling her inner voice, Harley Quinzel, and the obsession that she had with Joker as Harley Quinn, with the incredible Arkham Knight DLC showcasing that inner turmoil, here she's trying to move past that. That could have been a great narrative point, similar to Batman the Animated Series or Injustice 2, where she's actively haunted by her past, but Batman gave her a second chance. It could have added some complexity to their relationship, maybe showing that after Batman came back into the light after faking his own death in Arkham Knight, that he did try and visit her, that he tried to reintegrate her into society, but failed to do that before Brainiac took control. It would have been a great narrative element to show the complexity that she has with Batman, that she does care for him, seeing that he actually did care for her, but they decide, nope, let's not do any of that. For some reason, she does like Wonder Woman. I'm not really sure why, because there's no codex entry or any reason for the reasons that she's infatuated with Wonder Woman. It makes no sense because it just comes out of nowhere and there's no foundation for this even existing. The Flash actually would have made more sense, seeing that he saves Harley's life from certain death and at the Batman's hand at the cost of his own life, but they all treat Diana's death with more elegance than anyone else. Heck, they literally piss on Flash's grave. I guess you can make the argument that she was the only one who could take on Superman and her death means they're screwed now, but wow. Not even Batman gets this level of respect. None of the male cast get any level of respect. They're all treated like garbage human beings. If anyone Harley should feel close to, like I stated, it's Batman. Wonder Woman is the only character that shows any level of respect through the writer's view. Even Lex Luthor codex entry shows respect for Diana. It's really strange given that Lex Luthor hates all metahumans, but for some reason he writes Diana in a positive light, almost like the writers took no consideration to the lore of these characters and just rewrote them with a biased agenda. Like I stated, Lex Luthor just hates all metahumans, but just look at this codex entry. How the heck would you ever convince me that Lex Luthor wrote this thing? Other additional characters who join the ranks are the reborn Poison Ivy, who's now a middle schooler eco-terrorist who wears a cape for some reason, and Toyman, who is a walking joke. By the way, it is canon that Poison Ivy is able to use her pheromones in order to mind control people, and that's why they keep her in airlock cells, but here she doesn't have that ability for some reason. You would assume with all the males and females around her that she would simply replicate that pheromone in order to take control of their brains when Boomerang implants the microchip into her neck. As for Toyman, his personality is that he loves the Justice League and he's an idiot. I'm not joking, Boomerang implants a neck bomb into him and he sees this as an initiation, yet he's conveyed to be this super genius but treated like a moron and segregated to the game as just another crafting option to create elite grade weapons. That's the only reason he's here. Same thing for the Penguin. The Penguin is also just recruited as another crafting option who just is pushed to the side and not really cared about after that. Amanda Waller does steal the show. She's actually the best character in the entire game. As the cold-hearted government agent, she's ruthless and willing to use anyone, including children, to accomplish her goals. She has little remorse for the actions she has to take and exercises whatever she needs to do in order to get the job done. She's violent, unstable, and extremely dangerous. When you're fighting impossible odds, you definitely want someone like this on your side. Evil to fight evil, and Amanda Waller is no joke. She's even more threatening than Brainiac. Ultimately, the narrative just falls flat, especially the continuation to the acclaimed Arkham franchise, because there really isn't an ending. The game cuts off at the end, stating that you have to face multiple versions of Brainiac, but at a later date. That's right, the rest of the story is coming later, and you'll just have to wait until you want to engage with the game at a later date to find out what exactly happens. God, this is such a mess. And I guarantee you, if they got away with the battle pass meths, they would have 100% charged you for the remainder of the game. Either way, it's just a huge flop, especially considering that the final boss against Brainiac isn't exactly a fight against Brainiac. He just turns into the Flash and you fight the Flash again. So if you're assuming what the next fights against Brainiac are going to be, my guess they're just going to be recycled fights against the Justice League, only in the form of Brainiac, and they'll add, hordes of enemies like they did with the Flash fight. If you don't believe me, well, why else would they do that for the final boss of this game other than laziness? At its core, Kill the Justice League is a third-person shooter with cooperative elements. Harley can use a pistol and a heavy gun, Shark can use shotguns, assault rifles, and a heavy weapon, Deadshot uses pistols and a sniper rifle, and Boomerang uses a shotgun and a sniper rifle. As for travel options, Harley can swing using a bat drone that requires a charge after each use that increases each time you use it but resets when you hit the ground, and an underpowered grapple hook that makes the mobility system from Gotham Knights look incredible by comparison. I mean, it says boost, but it doesn't really boost like in the Arkham games. Deadshot has the world's most effective jetpack that can only fly for about 3 seconds. You can vent it for an extra boost, but you'll need to land after you use it for the second time. Boomerang is by far the worst when it comes to travel options. He uses a speed gauntlet that allows him to dash forward for a limited time. You throw it, and whatever surface that it lands on, you'll dash to that area. But the best option is definitely King Shark, who plays like the Hulk. You're able to jump and leap massive distances and dash up to 3 times per leap. He also has the best sprint option. You can switch between the characters mostly at any time, and when you switch between them, a short little loading screen appears. It's not that long, it's about 2 seconds, but it's definitely there. An entirely new type of gameplay was developed to complement this new traversal system. Instead of the heavy melee combat and stealth systems from the Arkham games, this title relies on Fortnite-like mechanics. You are meant to run and gun as many enemies as possible to increase your combo meter and add benefits. The combo meter provides benefits based on your talent tree and what skills you invest into. You're free to edit your talents without any type of consequence, and there are 3 trees to choose from, but none of them matter. Despite being separated into 3 sets, they are treated like one giant skill tree. You'll gain skill points by gaining experience, but stupidly, you do not share experience between your party. Only the person you play as gets experience at the end of each mission, adding to the grind and making it a handicap if you want to switch between characters throughout the game. Strangely, you cannot switch between characters during missions for some reason. This becomes a massive problem when dealing with long-range targets, seeing that only Deadshot and Boomerang have access to long-range rifles. But Quinn can't snipe using a pistol if you're good enough, but if you're playing as King Shark, you're screwed. My guess it was because of the live service function, which means if you end up in a terrible situation, you have to quit out of the entire game. I mean, literally quit out of the entire game. There is no quit mission option. And change your character if you're lucky, because sometimes they lock you in and you just have to deal with it. All of the characters play exactly the same with the exception of the traversal options and the limited weapon selection. Even the special abilities all operate the same, with one heavy attack for a single enemy target and a traversal attack that deals heavy damage to a certain amount of area. There is an ultimate attack, but as far as I can tell, it's not really that different. Sometimes they slow down time, sometimes it just allows you to deal heavier damage. Ultimately, you're not going to see much of a difference between whatever character you choose. The shooting is alright, it's nothing to complain about, but there's no cover system, but it's clear the shooting is meant to be fast paced and it works. When reloading your gun, you can speed up the process by hitting the reload button again at the highlighted part of the meter, but if done wrong, it takes longer to reload, similar to Gears of War, but there's no benefit for increasing your reload speed because you just get it much quicker. You can use elemental inflictions such as freezing, burning, and toxic. You can further upgrade your character using Penguin, Poison Ivy, and Toyman's crafting options with an array of equipment such as shielding, traveling mode, and 2 more trinket slots by leveling up your character. As for the inflictions, freezing allows you to deal heavier damage to the target and they can't move. Burning does damage over time, and toxic does the exact same thing. As far as I can tell, I can't really tell the difference between burn-in and toxic. Extra bonuses can be attained through contracts. These are optional objectives that yield experiences and resources. Honestly, you'll earn so many resources that the only one that will matter is the final blue diamond one. I don't care enough to know the exact name to this, used in upgrading your weapon to the elite option. The final resource is protenium, I believe that's what it's called. Again, I don't really care, which is used to access the end game content and increase the grind so you can get Bane weapons, which is the higher tier of weapons, and it's separated between tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3, and you get more higher options by beating the game on higher difficulties. So what will you be doing in the city of Metropolis? Well, not really much. Most of the missions are repetitive drags as you do the same thing over and over again. This is because you'll need to grind before facing each member of the Justice League just to get enough equipment to take them on. This is completely artificial, but for some reason they require this. This includes saving civilians, defeating targets, and destroying giant purple nodes in the way of cannons and incubators. You'll eventually unlock escort the truck and vehicle destruction. The worst are the combat challenges, where the enemy can only be damaged by using one type of attack because the game will toss hordes of enemies at you. Once you finish the mission, you'll have to endure the victory pose of your character, the loot drop from Penguin, and finally the level up screen, all of which you cannot skip. I don't know who thought this was a good idea, but it's entirely stupid. Remember in the Batman Arkham games where they give you a quick summary of all the experience that you gained on the left hand of the screen so you don't have a break within the action? Here they decided to go in the opposite route and just make you wait through this entire process. I'll show the entire process in its full here just to show you how tedious this is, and you have to watch it every single time. The last thing you'll do is the Riddler challenges. Yes, Riddler is back for some reason. His ego has been hurt because Waller didn't choose him for the mission, and now you have to solve riddles, collect trophies, and complete travel challenges. It's entirely just busy work. It's like no rhyme and reason was put into this. They just decided we need to extend the game, let's put this here. As opposed to the Arkham games where there is actual heart put into these challenges that emphasize whatever mechanics and systems you had at hand. Here, you're just doing the same thing over and over just for codex entries. It's clear this was only put into the game because it was in the mainline Arkham games, and they didn't really care where they put them, because once you collect them all, you don't gain anything. You get an achievement, but that's it. There's no end game to any of this. I'm not really sure why, because considering that Riddler knows that you get bombs implanted into your neck if you join Waller's squad, I'm not really sure why he would even entertain the idea of joining Task Force X, because it just goes against everything that Riddler stands for. There are no optional villains or enemies to face. It's just wasted potential, considering that fans have been yearning for a chance to explore Metropolis, and there's really no type of individuality to this entire map. In fact, they could have copied and pasted any city in this game and it would have operated the same way. Yeah, there are Easter eggs everywhere, but there's no unique villains that cater to Metropolis' setting. Heck, like I said, the Riddler, why is he even here? The enemies we face are just transformed humans who look like they belong in a fantasy game. You have cannon fodder enemies, snipers, brutes, and bombers, along with vehicles such as tanks and helicopters, complete with giant purple orb weak points. I'm not joking. This is an Arkham game and they put giant purple orb weak points. And there are enemies who can use the Flash and Batman's abilities once you beat them. Not really sure how this works, but yeah, they have their abilities. The snipers are the worst because they can teleport and disable your traversal abilities. Sometimes they'll have armor that requires you to use melee or grenades to destroy the armor. And there are counterattacks in the way of pulse lasers that indicate that you need to counter this enemy with a lightened icon that appears on them. Overall, there's not much of a threat, so the developers just put in as many enemies as possible. You know, the lazy challenge direction where they just send hordes of enemies towards you. Occasionally, they'll drop a barrier where you can fly around it, or you can shoot the crest that opens up and just destroy it that way. They did try to add personality to the enemies by having them talk in the overworld. Not sure why, since the game makes it known that the person who is turned into these creatures dies in the process. So are the tentacle things alive or are they not? In fact, there was a great opportunity where they could have made it that some of the humans are aware of what happened to them and they're begging for release. And given how easy it's to take them down, you wonder how even Brainiac got this far, considering that they're just really weak cannon fodder soldiers. As for the boss fights, they are kinda well designed, but highlight how weak the Justice League is. None of them offer a challenge and they're just critically handicapped, so Task Force X can just easily kill them. It's pretty sad that none of the Justice League fight using their full potential. Instead, they just feel like knockoffs of the real thing. Seeing Wonder Woman go 1-to-1 with Superman is a feat and highlights how both these heroes' raw strength are really intimidating. But when you fight Superman, he's a joke. Like, when he was fighting Wonder Woman, you see how much of a threat this guy is and how Wonder Woman was struggling to try and take him down, but when you fight him, he holds back entirely. But it has to be because if Superman were to fight with his real strength like he did with Wonder Woman, they would be dead in seconds. Batman in particular is just terrible. It starts off cool with Batman using their greatest fear against them, then it turns into a poor version of the Mr. Negative fight from Marvel's Spider-Man 1. Considering that, again, Jason Todd, Robin, and Nightwing were unable to take down Batman, but these guys were able to take him down while under the influence of the fear toxin, it makes little to no sense. The game does a great job of tracking your progress even if you decide to replay the campaign. The game's matchmaking system is easy to use and you can replay any mission with friends, with the exception being the tutorial, and continue forward from that mission without having to leave. The game will track all Riddler challenges and optional missions regardless of where you start. The issue is currently that matchmaking is still unreliable and often you'll get dropped during the matchmaking process, but if they fix it, you can replay the entire campaign with friends and all your upgrades, and it's definitely really well constructed. Despite rolling back a lot of the live service functions, the game still operates like a full live service experience, so expect very hefty microtransactions. A single pack can cost up to $10 and this is what you get. Honestly, if you pay for this stuff, you really need help and you're getting fooled. There's no pay-to-win elements in the game, but yeah, the terrible practices here is just insulting. A lot of the cosmetics here are just really baseline stuff. There's nothing really cool about them, and considering, again, this takes place within the Arkham universe, a lot of the stuff here just doesn't match that style. Ultimately, I can't really complain about this stuff because you do get a considerable amount of cosmetics within the core game, but regardless, here it's still pretty predatory of how much these things cost. And while the battle pass is still not implemented, they do have a very positive take on it, meaning that you can replay battle passes, allowing you to unlock stuff even if you don't complete them, which I think is a great way to gain customer morale. So if you miss out on one battle pass, you can still play it and unlock all the stuff in that entire tier list. So that's good, but I just don't see a lot of people grinding out the stuff that's required of that battle pass because all the missions are repetitive, especially the end game content where you'll do the same things over and over and over again just to unlock enough credits to replay the same objectives over and over again, so the loop just continues. Ultimately, you're doing the same thing, and I can see players just getting so bored with this that they decide to go to something else. The most appealing part of Kill the Justice League is definitely the animation. Character models look amazing and expressive, can't say that the world shares that quality. Gotham from Arkham Knight had villains working out, playing baseball, robbing stores, talking to one another, and generally feeling like a citywide riot. Since all the people in Metropolis are in hiding, all you'll find is patrols of turned humans. The music is also quite good, can't share most of it because of copyright, but the animation and sound team did an exceptional job here. especially with the selection of cosmetics where you can mix and match body, head, and color options. Granted, some are locked in the in-game store, but there's still plenty to choose from, with the exception being the tutorial and the Superman boss fight. All the cosmetics do carry within the in-game cutscenes, so overall, I can't complain about the animations. It's really well done. As for the technical stability of the game, I've had multiple instances where the game will literally crash on me, where it would say can't connect to WB servers. Overall, all that stuff is just problematic and completely obtuse, but what are you going to do? They really want this single player always online experience. Yes, it's a multiplayer game, but I played the entire game single player and I still had to connect to a server. Not sure why this thing is still being perpetuated, but whatever. Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is an adequate shooter with light looter elements. It is not on the same quality as Rocksteady's previous work, and given it takes place after the events of the Arkham games, just makes this so much worse. The narrative is flimsy, and I wouldn't be surprised if many players thought it was fan fiction taken as serious endeavors, and it takes a lot of leaps in logic to give the illusion of progression and strength, leading to an uneventful ending that crashes the legacy that took years to develop for this studio. Which leaves me the question of who this game is for. It's not for Arkham fans, clearly, given how far it strays from those titles. The shooting is okay, but the gameplay is done far better in titles like Fortnite and Warframe, which offer far better gameplay loops and loot to match. And the story is incomplete, requiring the player to complete the same gameplay loops over and over again for the promise that the conclusion will come later. Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League just doesn't know what it is, and in an attempt to chase fads, it falls flat. And even at its best, I wouldn't even consider this game a purchase during a hefty sales day. Heck, $10 would be way too much for this game. Overall, if you ever wanted a physical representation of how to tank your reputation after years of cultivating it and becoming one of the greatest studios of all time, Suicide Squad Kills the Justice League is definitely that game. I don't know what happened to Rocksteady, but they're no longer what we once thought they were.